Good morning, Breakfast with Bacon fans. I'm really happy to have today's two guests. They represent something that I am very passionate about. My guest today, Patricia Phillippi and Mark Feliz, are part of my Sacred Standers group. They, like I, though I am a parent stander, standing in the gap, are standing for the reconciliation of their marriages. They are part of the Catholics for Marriage Restoration group, club, community. And we are here today to talk about not only standing, but a fantastic retreat that is coming again this year on the weekend of October 22nd through the 24th for anyone who is a separated faithful who is standing on his or her vows. I think that's all we need to let people know to get us started. So Patricia and Mark, thank you guys so much for making time to come, especially to talk about a subject that most people probably wouldn't want to.
Thank you, Christine. Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Me too.
Mark, oh, I was gonna say, Mark, you gotta say it out loud. We got some people that are listening and not watching. So you guys went last year to the Catholics for Marriage Restoration retreat. Then what were your thoughts about it?
So for me, Mark, you mind if I
I'll
take
go
this
for it.
one? Okay. Um, so I had gone through the experience, the horrifying, bewildering experience of abandonment 12 years prior. So at that time, I had been praying and looking for accompaniment from the church. And my spiritual directors would constantly tell me, let the church carry you, let the church stand with you. But all that I could find was really the teaching, which is beautiful and wonderful, but I couldn't find like actual accompaniment, like human interaction that understood the pain and the hardship and all of that went with that. And so when I heard about this retreat, it was a really glorious moment. It was as if prayers were being answered. Um, Even though 12 years later, I felt like this is what Pope John Paul II was urging the church to do in Familiaris Consortio in 1981, recognizing the gift that standards were to the church, that the church herself should walk with them, support them, and love them through this. And so I had this just overwhelming sense of gratitude to the organizers for responding to that very urgent call from Pope John Paul II. And so I wanted to go and thank them and to receive their gift of support for me. I had done a lot of work personally, spiritually. And so I felt too that I could be a sign of hope for other standers who may have been, on this journey, relatively sooner than that. So that's what it was for me, just in terms of why I made every effort to attend, and in fact did. Mhm.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and I forgot to say too, it is in Atlanta. It was in Atlanta last year, and it's in Atlanta again this year. It's put on by the diocese. Well, it's not put on by, but the Diocese of Atlanta is sponsoring and letting us use their facilities and things. But
And
this is for
if I
people who
could
don't
add, that
necessarily
was
live in Atlanta as well.
that was what was so phenomenal to me, was there were several lay organizations that were beginning to accompany standards, but the church's presence, that a whole diocese was supporting this, was that very powerful moment for me.
Yeah, I
So,
think you just said it, because as Catholics, all of us think that there should be standards ministries in every church, but there's not. It's, oh, you're divorced, here's how to get over it and get remarried, or here's how to get an annulment. And so for
mhm.
those watching, they may not understand the pains associated with, wait a minute, when I got married on my wedding day, it said till death alone do us part. And the Catholic Church believes that, which is why they don't let you get married in the church a second time, because they acknowledge that, no, you're still married. And now why aren't we finding the support? Why is no one supporting us? So yeah,
Mhm.
this was really great. It for me as well. For me as well. Mark, what about you?
Being from Colorado, living in Colorado, I was wasn't going to attend the retreat in November of last year. because of the distance and the expense. And I was, wondering why can't my diocese have something like this? Um, but it was an opportunity for me to meet other people who are Catholics, who are divorced but are remaining faithful to their spouses. And it's like, I don't get to meet people face to face normally. As a couple here in my diocese, we meet once in a blue moon. A couple of guys that were abandoned by their spouses and are still remaining faithful, thank God. But yeah, so I decided, yeah, what the heck, this is a rare opportunity and I want to
Hmm.
take advantage of it.
Yeah, and the thing you said too that just struck me that I think a lot of people don't understand, I want to make sure I magnify what you said, is that you don't get to hang out with other people that get it. You have friends, you have people, you go to church, but most of them, and I guess it's true with you too, Patricia, is they're either in marriages, happily, or they're divorced and they've quote unquote moved on, so they just don't get it, or they're somewhere in the middle where they just never really thought about it, and so they think what you're going through is easy, get over it, move on. So to come here and be around other people who get it is so powerful, so necessary. And I want to say one more thing before I ask you guys another question. You both, I know, have probably heard me say, as my group, my standards group, I've said many, many, many times, is that standing is probably the second most heavy cross you'll ever carry, behind maybe the death of a child. And we have people in my sacred standards now from every state in 10 countries. And we have heard, I have said that, and I've heard two, not one, but two women in our group who have lost an adult child have said that it was that standing for their marriage is more painful than the death of their child. We have another man in our group who was sexually molested by a priest for many years. And he said standing for his marriage is harder than the sexual molestation he dealt with all of those years. And we have a fourth person who is dealing with stage 4 diagnosis of a disease that possibly her impending death. And she said, standing for my marriage is more painful than that. So for anybody watching that's not in this situation, I hope that that helps you open your eyes just how painful it is to do what Patricia and Mark and many others are doing. So my question to you two then is, do you agree? And can you try to explain to people why it's so painful? And if you don't, I'll fill in the gaps after.
Here, I'm smiling
Because,
because I'm hiding my tears and my devastation. I should make it known that I've been standing for my marriage for over 28 years. And it was a shock then, and it continues to be a shock that my practicing Catholic wife was willing to ditch me for what her life is not that much better. Um, Now she doesn't talk to me right now. I we have a daughter together, praise be to God. And my daughter gives me, ideas what her mother's doing, and but I really struggle even to this day. Why did she do it? But yes, the I remember when I saw her with her uh paramour or adultering partner, and how instinctively I wanted to destroy him. I wanted to do something about, I came to pick up my daughter. At that time she was about 3 or 4 years old. And I went to pick her up and I saw him in her living room and I wanted to I couldn't believe how strong the instinct was to try to save my family by asking him to leave. And she called me immature because I was acting so erratically. I was like, but I was going nuts seeing this guy come in, infiltrate my family. And I remember my gut. It was like in a convection oven. It was like a rotisserie inside of me. I couldn't sleep very well. That's a lot of what happens to a lot of us is our sleep just goes. We don't we don't sleep well. And I remember that convection oven going for a long time and just aching inside. I go, I can't believe this is happening. This is my Catholic wife. who is continues to this day, I believe, practicing the faith. And it just, I'm shocked. I can't figure it out. I try to, well, what did I do wrong? You go through all that. How did I fail to be a good husband? And yeah, I can't, I was raised in a very somewhat abusive home, and I had other, I got fired from jobs. I got all kinds of things happen adversely. But I tell you what, this rejection of my spouse is the hardest thing I've ever gone through.
Mhm.
Yeah, after all that, you said the most painful word. The reason why it is more painful is daily rejection, the most painful emotion on earth.
Continuously.
Yeah. Patricia, what about you?
So, like Mark, the experience, I characterize it as bewildering. It was a bewildering suffering. My husband and I were very involved in our archdiocese in very various ministries, including marriage ministry. We brought the Alexander House's Covenant of Love program to our diocese. And
Oh,
so we were very involved, youth ministry, confirmation, vocations ministry. And so our family life was very much conformed to a flourishing life of the church. We lived the liturgical calendar, we celebrated, went to mass often. I mean, we my husband and I were godparents for so many children in our community. And so there was this very distinct just joy and fidelity that we had, and attracted lots of young families and couples into our little friend group. And so it was when this shift happened, which for me was consistent with my husband's graduate training in the social sciences, where a secular humanistic view began to infiltrate and kind of take over, corresponding with what I would say would be a crisis of faith or a midlife crisis. And so it was very confusing because we had lived so joyfully and so um, you know and so to emphasize the shock that it was, it was a death on so many levels over and over again. And while I bear that in a particular way moving forward, I'm often reminded about how my community and my extended family, they've lost a brother-in-law. They've lost a the men in our family group, they would go to adoration together. They would come over to our farm afterwards for cookouts. They lost they lost somebody that was very important to them. And so this grief is just so ongoing. Um, and just to give you a little what that looks like on one level, I, for the longest time, had a very difficult time watching family movies because, not to compare too much, but when somebody you love dies, you get to have all of these memories that are preserved in this spirit of love and joy, and it is a beautiful thing. But when you look at pictures as an abandoned spouse, you grieve all of that goodness and joy alongside this ripping apart. And so it's very painful and very, very emotional. And just a couple of weeks ago, my children wanted to watch family movies for the first time, me included. And my son, who's recovering from brain cancer, turned to me and said, "Mom, this was so incredible watching our family life in video. Dad loved you. I have no doubt." And that was such a gift and a grace for me in that moment. Because I believe that. I believe that, Mark and I follow our conscience and our what we call our internal form that aligns us to this is a truth that we can't go against the validity of our vow. For me, I in an unusual turn of events, have had my marriage examined by two tribunals, and both of them have confirmed this is a valid marriage.
wow.
Almost echoing, what my sweet little son echoed. This was good. This
Mm.
is true. And so I find great peacefulness of heart in that, alongside that painful suffering. And that's just a gift of our faith that we can suffer in a way that is life-giving, you know. So,
Wow. Well, what a beautiful story. The parts where your family actually did see the love and
mhm,
you were validated. And the part that not one but two tribunals said, no, you're validly married. I don't
mhm.
want you to say anything that'll like shame your spouses, but did your spouse enter into a fake second marriage
He
in the
did.
time
He,
apart?
he entered into a fake second marriage before the first tribunal even weighed in. Now, he was the one who petitioned for an annulment, and entered into a new union in the Episcopal Church, before the tribunal even declared.
Mhm.
And so,
So that
so
shows it's really not been about you. It's really been about God, right? It's like, I really don't care about, and I'm not speaking unkindly of your spouses who have never met, but this is what I see over and over again. It's like, no, I'm fighting with God. Do I really believe what God has said? And they have to go off into the far country and, deal with the famine and eat with the swine before they one day have their eyes open and go, wow, wow, will you take me back kind of thing, you
mhm,
know? But
mhm.
you mentioned something too, Patricia, which was the oh my goodness, I'm having a 60 moment here. It was such a good thing that you said, but we were talking about the rejection. Oh, what a bad interviewer.
The
Oh, I know
multiple,
what it was. It was something I wanted to touch on. Yeah. So when people lose a loved one and they die, right now, Mark, if your wife had died and you broke into tears 28 years later, and Patricia, if your husband died instead 12 years ago and you broke into tears, and someone walked up to you and said, "What are you crying about?" And you said, "Well, my spouse, I'm reliving the grief." They would put their arms around both of you and they would hold you, because no amount of time is unacceptable for one to break down at the loss through
mhm,
death. But
mhm,
if either of you started breaking down and said, "I'm just having a rough day," and they said, "Why? Why? Let me be there for you." It's like, "Well, my spouse, did your spouse just leave?" "Well, 28 years ago." What
mhm.
would they say to you?
Move on.
Yvonne.
Move on, get over it. You've got a problem.
Mhm. Now, I'm blessed to have a close group of friends who gets it, but the general public, that is absolutely the sentiment. Move on. And then another difficult grief is there's this implication that there must be something wrong with you for not moving on.
Yeah,
And
Yes.
there's
yeah.
no recognition of heroic courage, of the virtues that an abandoned spouse might have actually to be able to do this. I mean, I call upon those graces daily in my prayer life because it's so necessary.
Yeah, because it would be easy to find someone else. You could then again have sex every day, and you could then again, well, not that in marriage you have it every day, right? But then you could have someone watch those movies with. You could then not be lonely. You could have someone help you hang the pictures or wash the dishes, or when you're feeling sick, someone who could just do the things while you vomit on the couch and watch old movies.
Mhm,
There's so many things that the world is saying, go get those things, go get those things. You don't have to be alone. And yet you both are standing on your vows. Before we get specifically to the retreat one more time, why do you do that? Why do you say, no, I'll carry this cross?
I was struggling in the beginning when my wife left me, and I was only 40 years old, and I was freaking out because I can't spend the rest of my life without a woman by my side. I mean, so I immediately started getting close to a woman at work. I was spending all my free time with her. And she got to know my daughter, and she loved my daughter. My daughter liked her. It was, pretty wonderful. And I started doing a little, what you might call research. I talked to a lot of people, priests, deacons, about the commitment that I made, and I couldn't find a way out. I couldn't say, well, my wife was crazy, insane when she consented to marry me on my wedding day. The elements of permanence and fidelity till death and openness to children were all fulfilled. My wife was not a crazy person. She was not mentally disturbed and could understand that marriage was for life. So I couldn't, my consciousness wouldn't let me just say, so I had to break up with this girl or just stop seeing her, which was hard because I really
Because
want to
she
be with
brought you
women.
joy in a time when you needed it
Yeah,
most.
she was very a balm and a salve with this horrible pain that I just thought I didn't deserve it. I don't deserve to be rejected like this. And I even told my wife, I said, what can I do? Because I can't see myself marrying anybody else. And I called the tribunal office. I did all kinds of things to figure out what do I, what do I do? What do I go? And there was no green light. God never gave me a green light to find another woman. I was like, I was angry. I was mad at God. It's not fair. I don't deserve this. What did I do to deserve such pain and shock and it just complete disillusionment about life? I mean, it just affected me to the core. I mean, I didn't sign up to be celibate. I didn't sign up to be a priest. I chose to be married. I even waited till I was 35 years old to marry, thinking I gotta wait. I gotta go find the right. And I was close two other times before. I
Hmm.
was real close to women that I wanted we talked about marriage, but I just couldn't do it. Couldn't marry them. But this is the one I knew I felt really at peace with about marrying for the rest of my life. I felt really confident about it. So
Mhm.
yeah, I, it's
It's
sometimes it's
painful because
beyond
it's a
words. I
wound
can't
that
really
you can't put a salve
describe.
on.
Pardon me?
It's painful because it's a wound that you can't put a salve on apart from Jesus. The
Yeah,
blood of
yeah,
Christ is the salve we put on the wound.
Mhm.
yeah.
What about you, Patricia?
So for me, it's quite simple that the reason I carry this cross is because I said I would. I said I do at the altar. I said that I would give myself to you and that we would cleave and be one. And so, you know, I of course gave myself the time in prayer to prudently ask, could there be a reason why either of us didn't show up for the vow in the way we intended? And, again, that conscience, in the internal forum said, no, everything is there. So, so I'm carrying this cross because I said I do, and I want to live that out to the best of my ability. And I'm capable of doing that. I'm capable of showing up for prayer and receiving the graces to do this very hard thing. And then also, it's just that I do this. It's just certainly for what it means to my spouse, but also because in marriage, I said yes to children. We said yes to children. This is just for my children to be
Yeah,
able to have this continuity and this story of their family be preserved in any way, at least my part of it. Um, and so that is why, I sometimes in prayer can get great consolation over what this will eventually look like when my husband, the veil gets pulled and he gets to see the gift that's being given to him. Because what I'm saying in this standing is, I love you and I forgive you for better and for worse. And that's something that I can't do of my own accord. That's something that does really require
God's
a
grace.
prayer life and the cooperation
Oh,
with
yeah.
grace. And so that's God's doing and writing. And so that part of the story, every now and then I get really excited about, how are you going to end this, um, from the perspective of eternity. And that consoles me.
Excellent. So when you went to the retreat last year, what were your thoughts once you were there? I know you both said, oh, there's a group like me. What were your thoughts when you could just be there, listen to priests speak, listen, be around other people, have meals, renew your marriage vows, even if you did it only as half of the couple? What were your favorite things that happened last year?
I had a big takeaway. Um, sometimes when you go on a retreat, you don't really bring something with you afterwards. But this retreat meeting, there were like 20 or 30 other Catholics there, which was just consoling. I knew some of them already because I had met them over the years, and it was just nice to see if people, in person
Well,
that I
you and
hadn't talked to.
I've known you for years and we finally got to
That's
hug in
right.
real
I got to
life.
meet you in person, and it's just special, isn't it? It's a real special treat, I suppose, if you call it that, to just be with others who are in your same, they know your pain because most people don't know it. They can't empathize with the totality of that deep, deep psychic pain that it's hard to even describe. And
Mhm.
what I realized after going to this retreat, I mean, Father Block he's such a beautiful example of what priesthood is.
Yeah.
And I remember there was daily mass available to us. And I went to mass with him, uh, presiding, and there was, I don't know how many others were there in the little chapel at the chancery there in Atlanta. And he prayed the Eucharistic prayer like, I want to cry.
I
Gosh.
know.
He prayed it
This
so
is my
authentically,
body.
passionately,
Yeah.
and he slowed down. I really like it when a priest slows down during the consecration and the elevation of the body of Christ. And the words that I'll never forget it. This is my body which will be given up for you. And I go, bingo, that's what I'm doing for my wife. I have given up my body for her. And of course, in Ephesians 5, the verse that just rings in my ears as well, that husbands are to love their wives as Christ loves his church. And it all kind of fit together. It was like this brilliant light came into my life. And I realized how happy, because I have been faithful through thick and thin, through all the temptations you can imagine. And I stayed because the Lord's grace was upon me. No other reason. There's no other explanation.
Yeah.
My body,
There's
my
no other
flesh
way. Yeah.
just pines for a woman to be at my side. And I realized this is what I'm doing. And it's by his grace. And I just was glad. It's a joy in my heart that I spent these 28 years not looking and pursuing and dating another woman. And that was my biggest takeaway. And I I yeah
There's probably so
I'm
many more, but that
gonna
was your
end right now.
biggest. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Patricia, what about you? What was like your biggest or the thing that just you remember most?
I was so moved by the fullness of the care that was provided to me. We had counselors, spiritual directors, canon lawyers. It was,
Holy priests.
it gave me the sense that whether they intended it or not, that I was a guest of honor, that my status as a stander was being validated in such a way that I had never experienced before by the church, that we see you and we are here for you. So from the depth of the talks, of which you were one of them, I mean, I got to have direction. I got to meet with you and have one-on-one time with you, spiritual direction with Father Block, the sacraments. It was a sense of fullness, like I was at a feast. And I love Mark's reference to that Eucharistic call that marriage really is. And so this was a feast in that way for us, in a way we had never experienced before. So it
Yeah,
was
the
very,
organizers went above and beyond, and I was just honored to be there. And I loved hearing some of the other speakers, like John Clark. John Clark, the author of Betrayed Without a Kiss, who traces back the history of marriage. And he was practically brought to tears, and he calls you guys his heroes because he's happily married with, what's he got, 6, 7 kids, 8
mhm.
kids? But he said, looking at what you do for the Catholic Church is just, anyway, the speeches were powerful. Father Robert Altier from Minnesota, who's just a real warrior for marriage, and Layla Miller, one of my BFFs, who wrote the book Impossible Marriages Redeemed. They didn't end the story in the middle, and others. And yeah, it was nice. And to be able to speak directly to a tribunal lawyer, a canon lawyer, was very, very helpful. It was very edifying. I want to make sure to say too, if you're considering coming, we have some people in the standards group, or some Catholics for Marriage Restoration, whose spouses have left for someone of the same sex, or whose spouses have left and become transgender. And so the struggles are many, in detail, there are different, but at its core, they're all the same. Are we standing true to our vows no matter what? And here, I like what you said, Mark. This is the balm. This is the healing balm you can get for a weekend to just feel enough energy, like filling your gas tank, to get you through another year. So hopefully we can get more of you people coming. So the retreat this year is again in Atlanta. It's October 22nd through the 24th. And if you want more information, you can go to the website catholicsformarriagerestoration.com. Spell it all out. I pulled it up before we went on the air just to make sure we spelled it all out, and we do. Catholics for Marriage Restoration. And they have done a fantastic job, and we'd love to have more and more people coming. Remember, this is not just for those in the Diocese of Atlanta. That's just the fantastic diocese that is what's the word, guys? Holding this event.
Sponsoring it, maybe.
Sponsoring it, yeah.
And
Yes.
that every diocese should have one of these, no doubt about it. They're all over. Every diocese has a number of us, and a lot of them aren't even speaking out. They're not making any noise, I guess you can say, about their marital commitment. And I'm fortunate to meet at least two in my diocese. I know there's more. Yeah.
But our hopes too. I met at least two people who said, I'm coming because I want to bring this retreat to my diocese as well. So come, just so you can see a good format, so you can meet other people who will support you as you start to bring this to your diocese. My hope is that we can have one of these in every diocese, and then my greater hope is that we will no longer need them, that marriages will be restored, that the Catholic Church will stand for those, and we as a church at large will support people like Patricia and Mark, who say, I believe what you're doing and it's good. And by the way, I am a parent stander. I am standing in the gap. My marriage is very happy. As a matter of fact, in 2 more days will be my 42nd wedding anniversary. And I was the one who left my husband in 1987 or 86. And we were apart for 4 years. And he's probably the original stander, and I didn't even realize it. But it was because his door was open and his heart was open. And he had a little bit less pride than the average when he was able to say, please come back, to the person who had shamed him. So we didn't end the story in the middle. And I am so grateful that my grandchildren can come here and they can see Grandma and Papa together, and wonder what it would have been had I not come back. And so I stand in the gap for their parents to get back together. And so if you are a parent stander, you are welcome to come as well. If you are standing for anyone's, we will teach you how do you stand in the gap. Mark, Patricia, any final words? Oh, actually, let's do it this way. Name one thing you would have our viewers do differently, or do, as a result of something that they heard today.
Viewers, as in other standers, other
or non-standers, who's ever watching this video, give them
Oh.
some words of wisdom or marching orders, instructions.
My goodness, there's so much.
How about one of you gives instructions to the stander, and one of you gives instructions to those around the community, around the standers?
I'll do it for those around, because it's critical. I want to do that for my diocese. I want to be available to every man or woman who are victims of this abandonment, marital abandonment, because I think to be really empathetic, to really be able to empathize with that pain. I've had an opportunity to do that on a number of occasions. People from all over the country, by phone mostly, and I just feel very comfortable. I feel like God's calling me to help support other people who are discerning what to do when you're abandoned by your spouse and all that goes along with it. There's this devastation economically that I don't think is always talked about. You financially are going to take a big hit.
Yeah.
You're going to, like in Colorado, you split your assets in half, regardless of who contributed what. It's community property. And then you have to figure out where you're going to live. And nowadays, with the rents being so high, I just really have a lot of sympathy for those. And I really would like to talk to priests too. Priests, counselors, and other canon lawyers about what is really going on inside of us. When this happens to us, please, and I would just give me an hour so I can explain to you because it's a very unique pain. It's a very
Yeah.
deep, unique pain that unless you've been through it, it's really hard to empathize with your clients, with your parishioners who are enduring it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that is my dream too. Get in front of the priests, the deacons, the seminarians, and say, please, let's teach you truth so you can guide your sheep.
Yes,
Yeah.
amen.
Amen.
Patricia, what would you say to other standards, other abandoned spouses?
To other standards, I can't emphasize enough how important it is to have a prayer life because in the depth of this bewildering suffering, when you have to interact with your abandoned spouse, whether it's in regard to children or whatnot, you want to make sure you're not responding or reacting actually from a place of hurt and those deep, deep wounds. And so to have a prayer life where you can, receive the graces that our Lord wants to give to you, to be able to respond instead of reacting. Because remember, our whole goal is to create a climate where the door is open for a spouse to find their way back. And so you want to be mindful of really just keeping that ground receptive um, despite the pain, So
Yeah.
a prayer life is just absolutely essential.
Yeah. I don't know how anyone gets through life and any problem without a prayer life. I mean, and
Mhm.
one thing I know from all of you standards, as well as myself, is despite the fact that you said it's the heaviest cross you've ever carried, if I asked you if you would do it all over again and not have the same outcomes, the same relationship with God, would you? And all of you say, I would do it all
I
over
would.
again
Amen.
because of how close you are to God.
Mhm.
So that's a wonderful outcome. And that's perhaps one of the reasons God allows it. It's like, come closer to me.
Mhm.
Anyway, I hope to see you guys in Atlanta this year again. I will be there October 22nd, 23rd, 24th. We want all of you to go. And I will tell you, I do know that Sacred Standards obviously is sponsoring it. We're trying, I'm not promising yet, we're trying to get some grants for people who can't afford to go. And because obviously, as these two just said, your income is cut in half. So if you would like to go, but you don't know if you can afford to go, still contact them and we will see what we can do, but at least try. It is catholicsformarriagerestoration.com, catholicsformarriagerestoration.com. Spell it all out. Want to be there. Okay, I think that's it. Oh, make sure you like this show, subscribe, share. Share it with someone you know who might be in this similar situation
Yes,
or someone who's
please.
fighting for their marriage. Maybe it hasn't fallen apart yet, but it's on the brink. Share this show. Let them know they have a community. And if you can't make it to the retreat, you can still go to my website or one of my websites, the sacredstandards.org, and fill out the little form to see if you can become part of it. We are standards that stand for valid covenant marriage. If you're in an invalid marriage, that means if either of you is in a second or a subsequent marriage, you haven't gotten annulments, your spouse or you are still married to your first and only spouse. It's what Jesus always taught. There's no adultery clause. First spouse is the only spouse until he or she passes away. So if you're in a valid marriage and if you're confused, I'm not helping you still go to sacredstandards.org and they will put you in contact with me and we will talk it through. So I think that's it. Oh, breakfastwithbacon.com is where you'll find all my podcasts. You will find information about the standards and so much more. Like and follow me on Instagram, TikTok. I think I'm on Twitter still, X, whatever. I've got a girl that does all those for me. So I don't remember all the places I am. Facebook, go to the places, subscribe. All right, you two ready? Let's see how good they are. See how much they remembered. I am Dr. Christine Bacon. You've been watching Breakfast with Bacon, and I'd like to remind you always to live your life
Sunny
Sunny side up.
side up.
they remembered.